Today we have Stefanos Karatopis on our show. He is he's a board member for the OLA, the Ontario Landowners Association. He's a legal mind. He's a candidate also for the Ontario Libertarian Party. And brought him on today because we want to talk a little bit about lockdowns and the legality of all that stuff. How are you doing today, Stefanos?
Great. So far. Thanks for having me on here.
Of course. So recently we've started to see a little bit of pushback. This is our second lockdown here in Ontario, and you're starting to see businesses that are on the verge or on the breaking point pushing back against the government. And, you know, there's this conflict going on, and I wanted to ask you what you were thinking about this, not just in a legal frame of mind, but as to what you see coming down the pipe and how we're going to combat this.
Well, I don't know about the combating part. I'm going to have to think about that one long and hard, but a good starting point is the legal system. Businesses, and rightfully so, should be combating this stuff. I've been, from the start of all of this, I've been sounding the alarm, and everything I've been saying so far has been happening. But the nice thing that I'm seeing is there are court cases, there are constitutional challenges. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on that needs to be done. We have a big problem with these with the Emergency Act at the beginning of all of this, with the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. I believe it was the Cornwall Police Department had said that they would be enforcing, and they put a big giant thing on their website. So I sent them a nice simple little email, and it was, "Is the Constitution suspended?" And which to this date I have received no answer. I've also emailed municipalities and asked, "Is the Constitution suspended?" And there's been no answer. Not an answer of any sort, no response to the emails at all. So I find that very interesting.
Sure. I was going to say, I find that very interesting because, you know, it's a simple yes or no question. And you would think that if the Emergency Act is invoked, that is a suspension of our Constitution. So it's pretty simple that if you're going to enforce that act, that the Constitution is suspended, and you should be able to answer that pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, I'm not talking the federal one. I'm talking the provincial one here. But the other big problem is, I believe it might be in Bill 195.
Yes.
One or the other state, or no, sorry, I'm wrong. It's the Emergency Management Civil Protection Act, and this is why I asked that question, is because in there it says anything that's made, any garbage that we're getting like we are now under that act, has to be consistent with the Constitution.
Yes. So
the Constitution's not suspended. So when they go and they attempt to do what they've done to Adamson's barbecue there, or great example is the pastor and his church blocking them right out and stopping them. These are all things that are not consistent with the Constitution.
That's right.
A big misconception also, just so I'll point out, is that a lot of people believe that the Canadian Constitution is just the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which it's not. That's just a little section in there. And there's much more to it.
Sure.
You know, there's a lot of things I've been looking at, especially in I believe it's Bill 218, where they're trying to give themselves immunity.
Yes, and I find that act is just absolutely egregious. To me, it's a repeal of the Magna Carta, because that's where the common man went to the king and said, if you're going to make a law, you have to stand underneath it with us. You cannot be above any laws that you're willing to invoke on the people. And Bill 218 is effectively erasing that, saying that we can do whatever we want with impunity.
Right. And again, that act itself, to my opinion, is it's unconstitutional from start to finish. So the courts and politics have to be kept separate. And in this act, I find it's saying what the courts are going to do, such as there's going to be no lawsuit, nothing like that. No proceeding can be done, and proceedings being barred. Well, that's only the courts that are going to make that decision. If you look at no effect on defense immunity, you'll see sub 3. It's saying nothing in this act shall be read as abrogating or limiting any defense or immunity that exists under law or common law. So what do we have these laws and common law? A lot of people are misled by what common law is, so we have to be careful. A lot of people are saying things about it, and it's just misunderstood.
Sure.
During my legal studies, common law is simply erased through the stroke of a pen. So it changes, and it's constantly evolving as society evolves.
Yes.
It's not just one thing. But the other problem is, and I believe it may be Bill 195, or it could be 218 also. I have to quickly scan again, but the problem within there is they are saying for workplaces, and there can't be any liability kind of thing against them if they're become sick or they're gone from their job because of it. Problem with that, and I see this as a big serious problem. Sorry, again, that's Bill 218.
Yes.
So it's coming on about jurisdiction. It's coming on about cause of actions. They're talking about under no effect on jurisdiction and sub 3. They're talking about nothing in this act affects the exclusive jurisdiction of the Workplace Safety Insurance Appeals Tribunal to determine a matter described in Section 31 sub 1 of the Workplace Safety and Insurance Act. So there's problems there again, because they're saying if there's a conflict, that this Workplace Safety Insurance Act is going to prevail. Well, that's going to be a bit of a problem, because even under employment law, you don't have to go to this tribunal. You can go under common law. You can go, there's several options. So
Sure.
Just simply stating this again, and this is where I have a real gripe under provincial legislation, and this whole system needs to be changed, especially these provincial offenses. Provincial offenses, to my opinion, again, are unconstitutional. In the Constitution, where we are to be viewed as innocent until proven guilty. And when you have provincial offenses here say that you are guilty until you're proven innocent. So it's reversed, it's unconstitutional, and the onus is 100% on the defendant. So if we're into any other courts, real courts and real law,
Yes.
you are, such as the criminal code, you are innocent until proven guilty, and if there's any doubt, then you cannot be found guilty. So, and the onus is on the Crown to prove that you're guilty. So we have a problem here when it's all reversed in provincial offenses, and you can certainly see why they would take this type of an approach. And tribunals, boards, those things are all, they should be just done away with. They are, they're not a courtroom, it's not law, it's not even a judge that presides over them. So these things need to go. And another thing is, in the provincial offenses, again, justice of the peace, there's no requirement that these JPs have any knowledge in law. And what's even worse in these proceedings are that the judge is supposed to take direction from the Crown. So you're now being prosecuted by the Crown, and you're also having a judge that's supposed to take their direction by the Crown, and they're supposed to make a decision. Well, you have
So the prosecutor is basically the adjudicator at that point.
well, and you also have the judge that's going to prosecute you on top of it. So
Sure.
so it's a very unconstitutional. So these bills really need to go goodbye, and you know, under these causes of action, you know, and proceedings unaffected, and again in Bill 218, you know, they're saying here in subsection 2, number 2, a cause of action of a worker who is or was an employee by Schedule 1 employer or Schedule 2 employer, or of the worker's survivor, to which a workplace safety insurance board or Schedule 2 employer, as a case may be, is subrogated under Section 30 of the Workplace Safety Insurance Act. You know, we have they're coming up again, sorry, in number 3, they're saying a cause of action, an individual in respect of an actual or potential exposure to or infection with coronavirus, COVID-19 in brackets, that occur in the course as a result of employment with a person or performance of work for or supply of services to a person. A big problem there, and that's what's coming up. They're saying we have the vaccine, and this vaccine is going to go to our frontline workers first, so all our medical people are going to get this. Now, I can't remember which article it was, but there was an alarm sounded, and they told the governments that the people who are going to be getting these vaccines should be made aware of the hardships they're going to endure after it. That tells me right there that there is going to be substantial pain and complications and everything else.
For sure.
This act will relieve them of any negligence or anything like that. I don't know, but they're trying to stop all these lawsuits like they know are going to happen. So a lot of our healthcare people are going to be affected by this. I can only suspect severely affected by the sounds of everything. So
and it's scary law to see that come down when you know that it's unconstitutional for them to stand out from underneath it. You know, if you're going to force people to take this, or you're going to, you know, you're putting this out there, there has to be culpability if it's a, you know, if it doesn't work, or if you're causing injury and illness to people, there has to be some type of recompense for that. You have to be able to be held accountable for that. And we've known with vaccine companies for a long time that, you know, they've legislated them right out of that culpability, which is, you know, a whole nother problem that we face. But this bill in particular is, you know, they're setting up the framework for this to become mandatory without any type of responsibility for it at the end of the day.
Right, there's no accountability, exactly.
Yeah.
So what I would say as a start, this needs to be challenged on its constitutionality, period. That I read through this bill, and there's nothing good that I see coming out of it at all. And you know, there's changes that have been made are ones that are you know, they're making some big changes from elections to everything else. So are
Sure.
we not going to have an election now because they're still under an emergency order?
That's a great question, isn't it? And,
right.
and as long as we're under an emergency order. And so that's where Bill 195 comes into effect, is that bill says, well, the emergency is over, but we're going to continue with, you know, these certain powers, you know, until we deem fit.
Yes.
So there's no end to this, you know, even though they've said that the Emergency Act is no longer invoked, we are still underneath very many emergency measures, and they will do at will what they want with businesses, and, you know, mandates of masking and distancing. And, you know, it's unbelievable that people sit back and just let this pass. And I think it's really just ignorance. I think that 90% of the people out there don't have the time to read these acts and to understand what's actually being legislated above them. Because if people actually knew that this was happening, I would imagine there would be a lot bigger of an uprising.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this is just it. There's just so much confusion going on at this point. There's people are worried about getting food on their table. They're going to be getting worried where their money's coming from. Their businesses are closing down.
Sure.
There's a big problem there. So everybody's distracted by so many things, and then you have a majority government that's just passing everything through. And if anyone in their party doesn't agree, out they go. So this is
ramming it through. In fact, it's not even passing legislation; it's ramming it, and any type of voice, as you saw with Belinda Carhalios, you're out the door. You have no room to question what we're doing, because this is the agenda that we're pushing.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's just it's no longer a democracy at this point at all. It's just a straight up dictatorship.
That's right.
This is what's happened, and it's just going to get worse. I noticed that, and it may be 218 again, but they're talking about making their best effort. So they're, what's the best effort? Yeah, anything's a best effort. I've seen this stuff in I believe it was the town of Pelham, one of the council meetings some years back with the last municipal election that was just before it, actually. And there were some councillors on there. They would pass a bylaw and they would say best effort. You even had a councillor laugh about it and says, hey, okay, well, I just looked at this, that's my best effort, and that's it. So
Sure.
Those types of things mean absolutely nothing.
No, it's qualified immunity, and it's the same thing that if you read the RCMP Act, they have the same thing in I believe it's 45 section 1 and 2, where they talk about how as long as I am acting under good faith, you cannot prosecute me for what I've done as a police officer. So even though I beat the shit out of somebody, I was acting in good faith and I was doing my job, so I'm not responsible for that.
Right. So that is Bill 218, and
yeah.
it is under protection from liability. So that's section 2 sub 1. So it says there's no cause of action arise against any person as a direct or indirect result of an individual being or potentially being infected with or exposed to coronavirus COVID-19 on or after March 17, 2020 is a direct or indirect result of an act or an omission of a person if at the time or at the relevant time the person acted or made a good faith effort to act in accordance with, and then they have your public guidance and stuff. So, it's just nuts. It's not based in law. There's just this is just garbage. That's all I can say. Garbage.
It's one of the first bills I've ever seen that is retroactive.
Yes.
Very few laws I've ever seen. In fact, I can't remember another one, but I'm sure there's got to be one or two out there. But I can't remember a law that said this is enacted as of way back then. So that's another crazy thing about this Bill 218 is that it's retroactive to March 17th.
Yes, and the reason why, that's exactly what I was going to speak to next, and that's exactly the reason why you have not seen one is because there is none. Even bylaws, all these acts and everything, they always all say they can't be retroactive. Could you imagine making a change in let's say the Planning Act that requires everybody to have their type of wiring in their home change? Can you imagine how many millions of people's homes would have to be like torn down? It's just not possible. This is why we have grandfathering, right?
That's right. And imagine like an income tax law that was passed that said now everybody pays 50% retroactive back to your birth.
Oh yeah, that's exactly
what would you do then. And this is precedent, and that's what people I think escapes them a little bit, is that when these laws are passed and we let them stand, this is now precedent. So when they pass the next egregious one with a retroactive date on it, they can say, well, this is precedent. This is never challenged. Here we are. pass this retroactive too. And it opens the door for some really egregious maneuvers later on.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a real big problem here. And the way I'm seeing things shaping up, it doesn't look good. So we need some. I know the JCCF has been great. They've been doing things. So there's a lot of groups out there doing things too. But we need this stuff in the courts. There's a great many cases that are going to be tested. Are they going to now? What's going on with everything? There needs to be injunctions in places. Some things need to be challenged like that, so these bills are just so unbelievable. I just can't believe what he's gone and done. It blows my mind.
Nobody can. And the fact that he ran as a conservative and he was for the people and, open for business and all these catchphrases that he had on his, on his campaign. And it's just literally exactly the opposite of what he ran on here in Ontario. We're speaking to Doug Ford and the Progressive Conservatives. It's unbelievable. And his base, as the leader of the Ontario Libertarian Party, I get a lot of people in a day reaching out to me going, I cannot believe that this is what's on the table. And although I'm not a libertarian 100%, I know you are protecting our rights, and you are the rights and freedoms and property rights guys. And we're going to come on board regardless of what your other policies are, because we want to have our freedom. And it's a big maneuver to actually have people who have been conservatives for 20 years come up to me and say, you know what, I'm done.
Yeah, there needs to be a change. I was going to say they're all liberal and it doesn't matter on the provincial level or federal level, but I'm not even going to say that. They're all communists is what it comes down to. Every single one of them are pushing some sort of Marxism here, and it's so bad. I see.
Furthest right is so far left that they would be recognized in the United States as left of the Democratic Party. And that's, I was reading something that Aaron O'Toole said the other day about we need a plan, we need proper screening, we need, all these measures in place if you want to open up businesses. And it sounded literally like what the Democrats in the United States were saying. And I was thinking in my head that the Democrats are really far left in the United States, and this is supposed to be the right-wing conservative party who's preaching stuff that is identical to what the Democrats in the United States are saying, which just tells you there is no right left in Canada. Everything is left of center, and literally blue is the new red. And there's really only one flavor of ice cream out there. There's just 4 different colors.
Yeah, exactly. And as you're aware, I've been raising money with the Ontario Landowners Association to help out the gun ban challenge.
Yes.
You look at that, Aaron O'Toole. What did he do of that? There was a lot of these groups wanted him for leader. I can't figure out why, because he came straight out and said he wants a War Measures Act. As a matter of fact, I think he said it again. He wants to lock down the country, period, under the War Measures Act and suspend our Constitution, and then we're in big trouble.
Sure.
I talked with one of his people had called me, and I was speaking with them about, and I recorded. I think I had posted that recording out there, but I asked him there's his stance on the gun ban. There is absolutely no stance. They have no plan for it. Nothing.
No.
So there's a big problem here. I know as libertarians we defend gun rights. We need those. But back to this bill again, both of these bills, again, under the Emergency Management Act here, it says that anything made, so these 2 bills have to be consistent with the Constitution. Where's the consistency? There's nothing consistent with the Constitution. And the big thing you said there about open for business, what comes to mind is all the places, the small businesses being shut down. You can't open, you're not essential. We have our Costco's, we have our Walmarts, everything else is essential. But again, even something as that, again, is unconstitutional, because the Constitution says that the laws must apply to everyone equally.
That's
So,
right.
you know, and these, you want to even call these laws? I know one of these acts were, they were read the second, third, and received royal assent all on the same day.
Yep.
Usually doesn't go like that. I know there's a first reading, then there's some discussion,
Sure.
you know, and all of this is just done in one. But then again, I believe it was Doug Ford, when he was asked on the procedures of that stuff, he didn't know anyway. So, you know, it doesn't surprise me.
No, and at the end of the day, we all understand that there's a figurehead standing there who represents the face of the party, but there's people in behind closed doors that write this legislation and take care of that. There's no way Doug Ford wrote Bill 218 or Bill 195. He's just promoting it. He's the face of the party.
Oh, absolutely. And he's the absolute worst person to stand in front when he makes these announcements with, you know, MPP Elliott or whatever he wants to make. Like, they've tried different angles, I've noticed, to try to make it not look as much, but he's just reading off his teleprompter. He's got no clue what the hell he's even talking about. And I'll go as far as to say I wouldn't doubt that the questions are sent to the media before, so they already have an answer for it coming back. I've seen things, well, here's a great example. Municipalities, if you ever watch their meetings, and you would get the agendas, I don't know about now, but before, you would, before all this insanity, you would have agendas there, and on the agendas, they're saying who's bringing up the motion, it's already passed and everything else. So, you know, what's the gong show here? You're just, they're just there making up a performance for people to see and make it look like they're doing something when it's already done.
That's right. And it's so unfortunate that people don't get, you know, more proactive in their municipality and their local government, because I think if we did that and we actually put the power down at the bottom, and you had the people showing up from the community, you could actually have accountable and responsible government. I think having a federal government as big as it is an impossibility to keep it under check. And even at a provincial level, it's damn near impossible to keep it under check. But you could keep a municipal government under check if people were involved. But because we're not involved and we're ignorant and we're busy just trying to keep scraps on the table, that's where all this stuff starts, you know, that's where they get away with these things, is because no one's reading it and no one's keeping them under check.
No, absolutely. You're absolutely correct. And a lot of the other thing is people are just unaware. They're not informed. And the problem is, I remember some years ago I had run for mayor, and I had the primer for Agenda 21 of Sustainable Development for Ontario. And, you know, I showed some people and they were like, it looks like it's a good thing, but it's not. Look at Tim Ball and his court case. The hockey stick theory, the fake climate change that's going on,
Sure.
is a computer program,
Yep.
not based on any science, not based on any scientific data. And it's just a desired effect that they want a computer to spit out is what the input, they bring whatever random number they want. And
That's right.
this is exactly what we're having right now with the computer program they're using for the COVID projections. These are projections. They're not actual cases. It's not any scientific data. It's not medical science. It's no science of any type. It's a number to give out their desired effect. And
Modeling is not science. Modeling is modeling, and science is something completely different. And I can do modeling on anything, and you know that's basically theoretical. And theoretically, I can hang an elephant off the cliff by a daisy.
That's right.
If you put the right numbers, you can make that happen. And that's you point out something very, you know, important here, is that these narratives that are being pushed are not science. And anytime somebody says the science is settled, you know that there's a problem there, because science is never settled. We've you know, through history, proven that 99% of what you hold true in science today will be proven wrong within 100 years. And as we develop that, there's very few truths that stick around for a length of time. Even gravity is still the theory of gravity. We haven't proven it yet. And these are, 500-year-old things that we've held true, but we still haven't been able to prove them. So saying that anything is settled is that's somebody trying to shut down a conversation. And that is not very good at all either. And we need to be very, very ultra aware of that happening right now in the media, is that there's a narrative being pushed, and then there's a silence happening to anything that doesn't follow that narrative.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the other way they would say, conspiracy, right?
Yes.
I would always tell people, go right to the UN, check it out yourself. There's no conspiracy there. So on the municipal and provincial levels, we have Agenda 21. On the federal level, we have Agenda 2030. So how can it be conspiracy theory, or is our prime minister a conspiracy nut? Because he keeps mentioning Agenda 2030. So
he finally came out and said that, and that, that should give us all a chance to answer that and say, no, that's not really what we want. But again, nobody's informed. For the last 20 years, when we've been talking about this, we were conspiracy theorists. And it's no different than geoengineering. We were talking about, the streaks in the clouds 20, 30 years ago. Oh, you're just conspiracy nuts. And then they come out and admit, we've been spraying stuff up there. And they all come out at the end of the day. They end up on the back page of the news. They only get 7 seconds of time, and then it gets passed off into the wind. And that is dangerous. And our media right now is being very dangerous with our freedoms and our rights, because they're not talking about both sides. There is no investigative journalism done anymore. And these are huge problems, because they've literally become the lapdog and the mouthpiece of government. And they used to be the check and balance against that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so some of the other stuff that I was thinking about is, and you said it, they've been spraying for, I believe it's since 1975. If anybody gets called a conspiracy theorist, just punch in Google, treaty, U.S. and Canadian treaty on weather modification, and it'll show you everything right there, all the spraying they're doing.
Sure.
So, a lot of this, I have to give a lot of credit to a good friend of mine, former Senator Lenny Harris from Australia. He's a very intelligent man. I can't believe how intelligent he is. But he was pointing out a lot of things to me. We've had some great conversation, and especially with micromanagement. So this is actually a good thing that, or not a good example, not a good thing. A good example of that is when they started out, it's social distancing, right? Now they don't call it social distancing, so they've changed it. So this is micromanagement. Just change one word, or now it's physical distancing. Courthouses. I go into the courthouses. I look at the signs. I believe I had posted some of them on my page too. But I look at the signs, and they have 2 meters, and then they put 6 feet, which is wrong. So you can tell these people have not got anybody with a half a brain to come up with these things, because obviously we know that it's not 6 feet. And then you have it in French, and they're telling you the correct distance in French, but the incorrect distance in English. That it just makes no sense whatsoever. Everything is just upside down, and it's so bad.
Sure.
That,
so when we started this out, it was a very, heart-to-heart conversation that we fear that we're going to overload the medical system. We need 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And the minute that we did the shutdown, the narrative changed overnight, and it became stop COVID-19. And they admitted in the beginning that, we're not going to be able to stop a virus. It's a virus. It's going to float around. It's going to go around the community. Everybody's going to get it regardless, but we got to slow it down so that we don't overwhelm the healthcare system. The minute that they got people to buy into that, it became stop COVID-19. And I knew right then and there, the minute I saw that, that was a big red flag for me, is because you cannot stop. You can stop a virus about as much as you can stop Mount St. Helens from cracking off again when it decides to erupt. You have no control over these things. and to push that narrative and to actually have people bite into it is a whole nother, I cannot believe that there's a majority of people out there in this country who believe that if we just walk around with masks on and we don't go and visit grandma for Christmas, and if we all just do this, we'll stop a virus from traveling.
Yeah, that won't happen. And well, heck, weren't we looking at, wasn't there a big problem with super bugs that were developing in hospitals and everything, and we weren't supposed to be doing this and that? All of a sudden it's sanitizing your hands every 2 seconds, and what happened to the super bugs?
If it only saves one life, we're allowed to have super bugs apparently now. Stefanos. It's like everything else. I don't care about the hundreds of people that are killing themselves because they feel hopeless. And I don't care about how many people are overdosing on drugs. And I don't care how many cancer patients who are 6-8 months after they should have been diagnosed originally. Instead of stage 1, they're at stage 3 or stage 4 now. They're going to die because they couldn't get their treatment early enough. And all of the, the children who have cleft palate surgeries and have one leg that's shorter than the other, and they need to have that surgery, 3 of them between, ages of 2 and 3 and 5 and 6, and then again at 11 and 12. They're missing their windows for these times. None of that seems to matter because we're all in this together if it only saves one life.
Yeah, so I've been in a couple of hospitals. I've not seen them overwhelmed. I've never seen them so empty. On the contrary, but when you have nurses and stuff all dancing and choreographed thing, what does that tell you? Like, they have so much time on their hands. They're also, we're getting fired. I know quite a few people that work in the healthcare industry. There's places in Ontario, I won't say where or their names, I don't want to get them in crap, but they've never had a single case of coronavirus from the start of all of this, ever. To this day, they don't.
That's right.
It just drives me insane. There was an article I had read about a children's hospital in BC, and they had COVID through there, and all the children were dying. And it just so happened that I had a Facebook friend that I was speaking to, and I sent them that article, and I said, "Is this what's happening there?" And they told me it's absolutely bull crap.
Yep.
None of that's happening, and they're perfectly fine. So this is what you're talking about, are the media, and being the propaganda, the mouthpiece of the totalitarian government that we now have, unfortunately.
Right. And if all you have to do is look on, you go to Health Canada and go to their stats, and you can see that as of I believe it was November 29th, was the last time I looked, 108 people across this country under the age of 50 have died from COVID-19. I want to say with COVID. I don't want to say from, because we all know that you have a car accident and you tested positive for COVID, well, then you died of COVID-19. That's a whole nother conversation, and I don't want to muddy the conversation with that type of narrative. But according to their own stats, 2 people under the age of 19 across this country in the last 9 months have died from this disease, from this virus. And if only 2 people in 8 months under the age of 20 have passed from this, why are we doing anything to change their life?
Yeah.
That's car accidents. How many kids die in a year from car accidents? Should we stop everybody from driving? These are big questions that, there's death, and life has its own level of risk, and you're not going to be able to protect everybody. And it was never government's job to protect us in the first place. They're supposed to be in place to protect our rights and freedoms. They're not there to make us healthy or safe. And that's another misconception that goes around. And people are like, government should make us safe. I'm like, no, I don't remember any of the people who founded this country back there thinking that was a good idea. And I don't think it's changed over the last 150 years that it's a good idea. So why is it a good idea now to trust the government to keep you healthy and safe?
Right. So yeah. I was going to say something, but I won't.
Well, it's crazy. And I know where you're going with all that too, is that, with And the education system is part and parcel with that. They've had the leftist agenda implemented for the last 30, 40 years, maybe longer. And those people who grew up in that environment are now teaching. That's where you come up with, gender dysphoria is no longer a disease. It's a choice. And these are really big issues that we're facing in this country. And, I'm not racist and I'm not a bigot at all about anybody. But when you start saying that diseases are natural and we're supposed to be accepting of this, the people aren't getting help. They're not being improved, and we're not putting our best foot forward for our society at that point. We're allowing mediocrity to reign, and we should be doing better than that as a group of people. And we used to do better than that. And I know my forefathers, my family who's passed, are rolling in their graves right now, watching what's happening.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I could speak to a lot of that, but you cannot get ahead now. There's no way you can get ahead, especially with this. Property prices, everything's just going up like crazy. Anytime government interferes is a problem. So I'll give you a good example in the chicken industry. People were just bad negotiators, and people would get upset because somebody would get so many cents a kilo for their birds, and another guy might get a lot less, and they'd be all upset. So they decided they're going to create this marketing board. And then it was with good intent, but the problem is they started defending the processors and not the producers. And the problem then, all the producers now, instead of somebody doing good, some not, you're all doing bad, and you're footing all the costs.
Sure.
Look what they're doing to farming now because of this COVID garbage. Now they're deciding they're going to come out with a little bailout for poultry farmers and stuff. Government's creating the usual. Government creates a problem and then says, "Don't worry, I'm going to fix it," which makes it even worse, anyways.
Worse, right? And you know what? All those people that used to work in these plants, doing the processing and all that, they're getting more money sitting at home on their COVID relief check than they ever did make at that plant. You've effectively put people out of business because nobody has the will to work anymore, and you've given them the perfect opportunity to sit at home. And that's a huge problem when the supply chain starts to break, and it's been fragile now for months, and it's still on it's teetering. And people don't understand that. When the supply chain finally breaks, anybody who lives in the city is 72 hours away from pandemonium. Because once the grocery store runs out of chicken and runs out of beef and runs out of produce, how the hell are you going to feed yourself? And nobody even is questioning that. I was questioning this back in March. That was one of my first concerns is you start shutting down businesses and then the supply chain breaks because it's a fragile network. It's you take one piece of that puzzle out there and the whole thing can shatter on you. And nobody wants to discuss this kind of stuff, but we're still on the verge of this happening. And when it does, that's it for our society. You're going to see, crazy shit going on. That's when people start, kicking in your door because you've got cans of soup in your cupboard. This is like end times type of craziness that could happen if we let this continue the way it's going.
Yeah, well, look what they keep warning we're going to have a food shortage. So, it's amazing. This little virus that's so weak and it's destroyed so easily is causing so much havoc. So it's gonna stop our food supply. It's already screwed up the court systems. Look at what's coming next. It's going to shut everything down. You go to try to get a simple freedom of information from the police department nowadays. It used to be 30 days they would have it to you. Now they have 90 days to get it to you because of COVID. Well, what did COVID do? Like, I don't understand that. What did COVID do to delay those 30 days to 90 days now? It's not that there's a shortage of workers. I see a lot of police all over the place. So
Gotcha. And the same, like when you're talking healthcare, you can compare that the same way. Ontario is down like 40% in hospital use. I think that was roughly the numbers 40% less patients being seen right now, and yet we've increased the budget by $63 billion.
Yeah, that just crazy.
It's unbelievable. It's a license to print money. It's a license to be not accountable. And all you have to do is say COVID-19, and everybody goes, "Oh, okay, well, that's fine then."
Well, like, I guess Canadians should have absolutely nothing to fear now, because I believe it was today or yesterday I had read an article about Krista Freeland deciding she's going to eyeball everybody's bank accounts so we can bail Canada out. So you can kiss your money goodbye in your account, because they're going to use it to get us out of this debt that they've been spending like drunken sailors giving to other countries and everything else while ignoring us.
Can you imagine saving your whole life and putting away a couple $100,000, being really frugal with your money, and waking up in the morning and looking in the bank and having only $5,000 left, and the government saying, "No, we need you to save the rest of this country because you've been fiscally responsible and everybody else is living paycheck to paycheck. So sorry about your luck."
So now we know why, if you connect the dots, now you know why Mr. Trudeau had that section in his budget inserted, eh?
Sure.
Now we're finding it all out.
Yeah, and that's the bail-ins. This and that came long before COVID happened. He had the bail-in clause in his budget.
That's right.
So that's the next question is, you can see this being marched out slowly, and anybody who's been paying attention for years is watching it. It's like a playbook, and it's step after step after step, and all the pieces were kind of just off to the side in the past. And guys like you and me were going, where are they going to gel this together? Where's the cohesiveness to all of this? Because it's like part and parcel, and then bam, COVID hits, and it all just sucks together into this, this leviathan of tyranny coming at you, and all the pieces were put in place before, and it's here it comes, and I'm shocked. I'm stunned by it all, because I never thought in my lifetime that I would ever see this happen. And I'm a freedom fighter. I'm a a liberty guy, and saying warning about this, but never really saw that it would take something so little to set us off. And the swine flu was way worse. 70s, and you go back through history, we've had way worse viruses. The Hong Kong virus, and it's all of this stuff is just, this is nothing. This is literally nothing. Anybody under the age of 50 that fears this has, they're not paying attention to the numbers. I'm not worried at all. I have a good immune system. I'm a bricklayer. I work hard. I eat a lot of good food. I have vitamin C. I get enough sun so I get my vitamin D. I have no fear of this at all. And anybody who has any common sense and reads any of the numbers, the worst it's going to be for anybody under the age of 50 is, unless you have other serious problems, you're going to be fine. You're going to get a flu. You're going to be sick. And it happens to everybody every year. And I saw a really great meme today. It was, do you lose sleep at night thinking about the people you've killed the last 10 years with the flu? It says, no, neither do I. Shut up and get back to work.
Excellent.
And it's reality, right? Nobody thinks about all the people that they've put down because of the flu. And the flu for people under 50 is much more virulent than COVID-19 by numbers. So where was our concern back then? Why weren't we all locked in our houses every year from September to April? So.
Yeah, and even now, they're not giving us this second wave as because of deaths. They're saying nothing about deaths. It's just cases.
That's right.
That's it. And again, fake cases because it's a computer model. So
that's right. And the PCR test is garbage. It's yes. I could find anything inside you if I amplify a culture long enough. If I multiply it enough times, I'm going to find everything you ever had in your life. So
yeah, absolutely.
And these are things that the people don't have the time to research. So trust the science. Trust the science. Well, I trust science, but I certainly don't trust government. And when I'm watching YouTube videos of the virologists in Switzerland and Norway and Italy who are saying, guys, this is a real problem. I'm listening to them, and they're not talking that the virus is a real problem. They're saying that these lockdowns are a real problem.
Right, and why are we still relying on these tests when there's been numerous countries now that their courts have ruled them unreliable? So why are we relying on them?
It's like we have a big shudder going on our news. It's literally like, and I feel this when we used to laugh back in the 80s of people who had in Russia who'd listen to Pravda. Pravda would put out a news article and we'd all read it over here and go, that's not even close to the truth. Right? And now this is, I'm sure the same thing is happening around the world. They're laughing at our news. They're laughing at CBC. They're laughing at CTV because it's just all garbage. It's not real anymore. Everything is fake. Everything we look around is completely false. And
yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people being defamed by the newspapers, they need to start suing. They just have to sue because they're just spinning it. They're just moving in now. Anything that anybody is doing to combat this is, some sort of some unruly person that deserves the worst treatment of everything and denied every service and thrown in jail and throw away the key. That's it.
And so how unconstitutional is that conversation? You steal money from my paycheck to pay for healthcare, but because I won't listen to your narrative, now I'm not eligible for the healthcare because I think that your policies are bullshit and I want to live my life. But you're going to take away the healthcare. And in this country, I would love to opt out. And I tell everybody the same thing. You want my healthcare, you can have it. You just can't have my money at the same time. You can't get it both ways. You can't tax me and have me pay for your shitty system and then deny me your shitty system. So how about you open up the market and I'll, go pay a doctor on the street corner for stitches and I don't need to deal with you anymore. And let me out of your social contract. I'm fine with that. But you can't just, you cannot by constitution take my money and not allow me to have that system. Yeah. And you can't force me to have a vaccine and then tell me that if I don't take that vaccine, I can't have my kids go to school. I can't fly. All of these unconstitutional things. We have these are inalienable rights.
Yes, mobility rights. Yep.
That's right. So how does that even stand up in a court of law? So what's going to happen is people with a little bit of intestinal fortitude are going to have to push back with some money and do that. And if anybody out there who's listening to this wants to get together and start raising a fund, I'd love to do that. I'd love us to get together and put together some money to do this because these need to be challenged on a constitutional level, and they need to. They're going to be expensive, and we need will to fight this because it's going to take a while.
Yeah, we the more we get into these things, so we get a nice big class action, it will be cheaper for everyone because those costs get distributed amongst everyone. So the more we can get, the better, and it needs to definitely go to the courts here. I think I was reading today about they want you to have your immunization papers, that you've been vaccinated with the COVID-19 in order to fly. I think you were talking about that, and your service is going to be denied if you don't have it. Yeah, completely totalitarian, unconstitutional, and look. On so many levels, you can close your eye and stick your finger down on the Constitution. Anywhere it lands, it's going to apply to this. Sure. Right now, the type of government we have, being a dictatorship, it's communist. What's the Constitution say? It guarantees democracy. That itself, right there. This is why we would never ever be able to have a communist party as a ruling party in Canada because it has to be democratic, so it would automatically be unconstitutional.
Well, there was a time when it was illegal to have that party formed, but now all of a sudden we're allowing that, which is, I find it really odd that you would give that right, but my right to feed my family is questionable. You know, how absurd is all of this stuff? It's kind of crazy, but it's up to us as the people to stand up, push back, and guarantee what we have as rights and make them inalienable. I've said this a long time, Stefanos, and it rings so true today. A right is only as good as you're willing to defend it with your own life, because no one's going to be there to defend your rights. Your right to defend yourself, your right to feed your family, your right to do all of these things are really up to you. And no one can take them from you if you're not willing to let them go out of your hands. So if you have a business, open up your business. If you have, you want to feed your family and you're struggling, just do it. Don't take direction from somebody who's being unconstitutional. Your government is not serving you right now. They're serving another agenda, and you need to feed your family and you need to look after your family. And I probably get in shit for advocating that, but I do. I advocate non-compliance. When Doug Ford passed the last edict saying that we're going to go to lockdown, I made it very clear that I'm not even fighting what he's saying. I'm ignoring it, because it is unconstitutional completely, and it doesn't even deserve the weight of the paper that it was written on. And when we all do this, Adamson's Barbecue proved this very clearly. It would only take 10 businesses to open up every single day. They wouldn't have the manpower to fight it. They had 100 cops there to stop us, and I'm telling you, we still pushed through that door. I had the most delicious freedom brisket that day I've ever had in my life. I got shoved around. And as soon as the door opened up, the cops got aggressive, and not one of us raised our hands. We just kind of linked our elbows and we started walking forward very slowly. And eventually we put so much pressure on that police line, we walked right through them. And there's not a damn thing they could do to stop us. And that's the lesson to be learned right there, is if we did that en masse as a society of people who wanted to just say, you know what, screw you, the emperor has no clothes. They can't stop us from doing it. We are right now, we're acting like the elephant that was trained at the zoo, that had a chain on his leg for the first 6 months of his life, and then they took the chain off and the elephant never left the pole, because all he knew his whole life was being chained to that pole. And if the elephant would only just take 5 steps away, he would realize that he's no longer chained and he could walk away. And we're at the same point in our history right now. If we just take those steps, we'll see that the emperor has no clothes and there's nothing they can do to stop us from opening.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Stefanos, what a great conversation with you. I'd love to have you on again another time. And, talking shop and talking freedoms and responsibilities. And it's a great thing. And if you're down in the Niagara area, look this guy up, take him out for a coffee. He'll fill your mind full of wonderful information.
I'd just, if I can say one thing I can close out with, and
Sure.
That's this. If government was so good for us, the Constitution is the checks and balance that keeps government from becoming tyrannical. So if government was so good for us, why do we need a constitution?
Exactly. And our founders knew that, and every founder has known that. And let's listen to those people who are more experienced at that. The people who wrote our original documents understood this. And that's where we came up with these documents. And look to those with knowledge, and you'll find the answers.
Right. Thanks for having me on, Keith.
Always, Stefanos. Thank you for coming out, and you have a wonderful evening.
You too.